Hello, welcome back to Bistify. Now we will talk about how we can deploy the application to EC2 machine. Last time we did it on local, that means on the Jenkins master itself. There I also explained how you can connect new node and deploy your application to that node on EC2 machine. However, this video will not be about how you can connect the node and deploy your code there or the execute the job there, but it's more on deploying the code on the EC2 machine. So once it will provision the EC2 machine, and then it will deploy or host the application on that EC2 machine. So how it works, let's again focus on the codes, and these are the same codes we have available on this GitHub repository. Again, you can come here, clone the repository by doing git clone on your local, and you're all set. Okay, all right. So we already talked about this particular scenario now, and this was the Jenkins master IP. So let's not talk about this one now. I'll quickly talk about the next scenario where we are going to set up EC2 machine. So we have two folders, Terraform and app. So app contains the application specific codes, and the Terraform contains the infrastructure specific code, and all both the codes will be taken up by Jenkins file uh, to first provision the zero machine, and then it'll ask you to provision the sorry, deploy the application to it. So let's quickly talk about the infrastructure first. And when we talk about infrastructure, we'll talk first about main.terraform file, what it contains, what it is going to do. So we have the provider AWS as a you know AWS is the provider to get the resources for that cloud vendor, and then it will first create. So Terraform doesn't follow the sequence at all. So what do you see? It's not in the sequence, but it does the recommended stuff. So first resource I you see on the screen is security group, and these are the ports associated with it. These are the security group rules. Let me take this little bit down. And when you see egress, it is nothing but your egress outgoing ports, and then it is creating instance here with the name of app EC2. It's taking the MID, this one. This is nothing but the Amazon Linux 2023. And this is t2.micro. And this is the key name. It is picking the key name from the variables file. I'll show that to you later on. And then security group, it is picking up from the above ID, right? App SG, and then the ID. And then we have, once the EC2, while the EC2 is putting up, it'll pick the user data as the instructions for the certain installations, and what it contains, this user data file. I'll show that to you. So user data file is right here, but in the Terraform syntax we write it like this: file, and then the bracket, and then the path module. This is the tag, not mandate, but good to have to identify what this particular instance is all about. And then we have here the output, though we already have the output in here as well in the outputs.tf, but if you want, you can put it in this one. Although it is not recommended, if I remove this, it will still work because I already have this output.tf. We have already provider as well. So in the main.tf, I had this provider because I was launching up I was working on the different scenarios, so I took that main.tf from there itself. There's a reason it has provider and the output as well. If you remember, we in the previous to previous video we talked about the AWS CLI and the Terraform using Jenkins, how we can do it, the provisioning of EC2 machine. So from there, I picked it up. Anyways, let's move further to it. This is the region is same. I always work on, and the t3.micro is the instance type we have. AMIAD is the MID. This one. Key name is the deploy app. But now you'll ask again, what is variables.tf for? So variables.tf has the key, not the value, but Terraform vars file has the value along with the key name. Okay, so the so AMI ID is the key here, and this is the value we have. So when we define Terraform vars file, it works on the key value pairs itself. This is the user data I was talking about. So what it is doing? It is doing nothing but when while booting up the EC2 machine, it is trying to update the um, system, and then it'll uh, trying to install Docker and the Git simultaneously. And for Docker, it'll enable it on the system level, and then it'll start, and then it'll adding the group to it. And when we talk about Jenkins file, we already know this is the parameter. We will configure this as the build with parameters. Last time we were working on Jenkins, we click build now. This time we will have the option to whether we need to set the true for this taint. Taint is nothing but this is a Terraform syntax. When you do Terraform taint, it will destroy and recreate the particular module what you mark as a taint. So taint does that thing, and this is recommended way of updating your um, the configurations on for that particular module or the resource. Okay, so we'll configure it. I'll show you that to you later on. So we have configured one parameter here, and the action is true. Okay, so environment, we have the directory we will be working on this Terraform, and then we'll follow the stage pattern, right? So this is the again uh, check out a stage comes as first, and then it'll initialize the Terraform on that uh, machine, I mean on Jenkins, and then it'll taint that particular EC2 instance, and then it'll apply the thing. It'll provision the EC2 machine. Once the machine is up, it will follow the next stage. And what the next stage is, it'll start deploying the application on the EC2 machine, wherein it will be picking up the it will be logging to EC2 instance with the help of this SSH agent, and this is the credential we'll be creating on Jenkins. And this is what where we are going to get the IP from, right? The Terraform output. So once the infrastructure is created, this will pick up the output here, and this is all thing that it will be doing. So it will be checking in, logging into that EC2 machine. Once it's connected, it will say connected to EC2, and then it will little bit wait for the Docker to be ready so that it does the next step. What's the next step is? Next step is the same we did last time, building up the Docker image and then run the Docker container on it on EC2 machine. So once it is done, you are all set, right? App related configuration, if I expand this further, is there is no difference other than this particular message on the screen. Once the application is deployed, we'll try to access the EC2 IP, and let's see. We'll see if it gives the same message there on the pattern based application. Rest is the same, no difference. Same dependency we need, same Docker file content we need to have to for the application, the Jenkins file to follow, or the Docker build to follow in the Jenkins file, and then we have the app.py, right? So without wasting time, let's do some hands-on. So we'll come back here on Jenkins console. This is the next scenario. We'll be creating new pipeline. Let's say deploy app, not local, and this time it is EC2 pipeline. Okay. Now here we haven't done this, but this time we'll do it. First thing we'll do is to enable this one parameter. We'll add the parameter, and then we'll say the parameter as credentials, or let's see what kind of parameter we have here in this Jenkins file. So in the Jenkins file we have the boolean parameter. Okay, so it's a boolean parameter. Let's see what we have here in the boolean parameter. So we'll choose boolean parameter, and we'll say action, and then we'll say true or false. So this will enable us to choose whether we would like to taint it or not. So in the first one, we really don't have to taint anything because it will be applying the resource with the approval of yes or no. There is no other parameter we have configured. But if you want, we can also configure whether we would like to apply or destroy, right? But that I'll cover in my next video. So I am just slowly and gradually I'm adding up the things in my videos, not doing everything in one video, but just to have your learning in the similar or this easiest way. I have set these videos up like this only. So for this particular one, let's say action as true or false, whether we would like to taint, and this action is all about what parameters we have defined here. So we just defined the taint here. So the default value is true, but still I have set the action as true or false. So it will ask in the first go, right? And then we'll come here, do the SCM, again git, the same configuration like we have been doing so far. This time we'll pick this particular repository, copy this up like this. Credential would remain same, right? And then I'll say main because the branch is main, and then I'll say save to it. So I'll do save. Now the really interesting thing is I don't have the build now here. I have the build with parameters. When I do this, it is asking me, oh, okay, we have not chosen the choice parameter. It is the Boolean parameter. So for this particular thing, it doesn't work like this. It works on the choice parameter where we have get the choice whether to choose true or false. But this was the Boolean parameter. I forgot. I'll reconfigure it in the same way, or I'll come back to this Boolean parameter in a while. Before that, I would like to show you something because to make this working, right? This particular configuration or this particular job working, we need to have two prerequisites that you should configure at first place. If you haven't done, focus on this first. The reason I am showing this to you because when you configure this and hit build, it will start executing the things, and the first execution would be to launch EC2 machine. But how this Jenkins will be doing the stuff if it doesn't have the access to AWS uh, account for launching the resources? So what you need to do is, in my last video I have already covered this while executing the Terraform EC2 with Jenkins. There should be a role, although I have so far configured the admin access, but you can customize this. So and limit it to EC2 machine, permissions I'm talking about. Okay, so create a role and assign the relevant permissions to it, so that Jenkins, once it is at Jenkins where it is hosted, it is hosted on EC2 machine, this one. So your this EC2 machine where your Jenkins is hosted should have the permission to connect with EC2 machine with the help of this role, sorry, AWS with the help of this role, and do the you know uh, stuff uh, as per the guidelines or the instructions we have in the Jenkins file. So when your role is created, come here in security, say modify IAM role. I already have it attached. You can just select the drop down and select the relevant one, and then update IAM role to it. Right? This is you need to do it on Jenkins server where Jenkins is installed, not on the instance where we will be launching the app to it. Okay, this is Jenkins servers. First prerequisite field. Second prerequisite you should have is you come here because our execution will also be connecting to EC2 machine with the help of SSH agent. If you have seen this code right here on the bottom, somewhere it says deploy app to EC2 stage. Under this, we have SSH agent and the credentials are EC2 SSH key. So you should have the key handy, means when you are going to create EC2 machine, when this Jenkins will create EC2 machine, so Jenkins will also have the key for the new EC2 machine to connect to it. And for creating the key, you come here and do the click the key pairs here. In the key pairs, I already have created deploy app. So you need to create one and make sure you create, when you create key pair, don't choose the PPK, choose the PAM because we will be needing this PAM content. And when you connect to EC2 machine, you require .ppk. So when you have PAM, you can always convert using the puttygen to PPK. So you would be having both of them, right? And for our use case, I have already created it. Deploy app. Let's go back to instances here and let's quickly configure it. And I'll open up new page, duplicate page, and come here, manage Jenkins on the settings. We'll be coming here, plugins. That will require a plugin for sure. And that plugin is nothing but your, this is the third prerequisite you can say, install this plugin. It says success and it says once the plugin installed, you do what you need to do, you restart Jenkins when the installation is done. So as soon as the installation is done, it will be restarting the Jenkins as required. And once your Jenkins is restarted, the next thing we'll be doing is we'll be creating a credential with this particular ID. The ID is EC2 SSH key, and I'll walk you through how you can do that. So this is really interesting thing. As a prerequisite, you should do these things on the AWS as well as on the Jenkins, right? And you don't need to do this SSH part if you already have the key. I mean, if you attach the same key which you have here, because this Jenkins server also has the key attached to it, right? And that key is nothing but, let me show it to you. This also has the key. Just a second. So let me click this Jenkins server. Somewhere here we should have the key. See, key pair assigned at launch. This was Jenkins. So this is a different key I have created, and the one I'm using it on EC2 machine is the different key. That's the reason Jenkins is asking to get me the key as well to connect to that EC2 instance, and that we should really have. So I'll say admin, and the credential would be the password would be the first one that I have retrieved. Let me see if this is the same session. That's the same one, and the key would be sudo cat where Uh, just a second. Let me get the key. I'll take a pause here and I'll show that to you as well how you can retrieve the key. Uh, I'll be back. All right, I'm back. So I have found the my file here. So this is the one I was referring to. So this is the path where you can uh, find the initial password. I forgot to reset. Yeah, reset the password. So I'm using the initial one. Once you're logged in, make sure you first reset the password, change the password. All right, I think my SS agent is installed. Now what I'm going to do next is come here on the security and the credentials. I don't have the create access here, so what I'll do is I'll make a use of it. The first page, I'll say add. When I say Jenkins, it will give me, okay, I have to refresh the page. So I'll say add Jenkins. Now it will give me SSH username with private key. So what I'll do is I'll say EC2 SSH key. Make sure the IDs should be same as mentioned in the code. Username is nothing but the EC2 hyphen user. That's where you connect, and then the private key. You add it here. Private key is nothing but the content of that. I've added this up. All right. So we were talking about this particular one. So this was the description, not the choice. Let me see what name I have chosen here. I have chosen taint EC2. Let me do this taint EC2. And since we have done it by default, so even if I don't configure it here, it will be still be working, but for not the first build, because the first build would pick this configuration. And if I remove this and configure it on Jenkins, it will still work like this. So either way you can do it. However, I just wanted to show you how we can configure the job with the parameters. So this is the parameter I have set by default, means I'm setting it out as true, right? If I click this question mark, let's see what is. It specifies the default value of the uh, field. So we are marking it as true. So let me first add this build with parameters. Now it is saying if I uncheck this, it will be considered as false. If I check this, it will be considered as true. So now I'll say my SSH key is created, everything is created. Now I'll say build. Going ahead to console output, it's checking it up, and we have got the failure. Let's see why it is so. Oh, okay. So it says Terraform not found. So we are missing with the Terraform installation on this Jenkins master. So Jenkins master should also have the because it's following the Terraform commands on here. If I show it to you, these are the Terraform commands it's trying to execute. Terraform init apply, but Jenkins doesn't have the Terraform installed. So let's do it manually for now. I'm checking it up. I'll come here, Terraform install L3. So certain commands I need to run. Let's follow the official article. You can also do that. Linux. Since just a second, I don't have the Linux. I have Amazon Linux. So my first command would be, so I'm already connected to Jenkins master, so let's not waste time. Okay, let me restart it, clear the session, and then first command is done. Second is this one. All right, it added the repo. Now it's trying to install Terraform. Now the Terraform is installed. All right, again we'll say build with parameters, build to the console output. See, now it's trying to execute Terraform in it, and it has found the Terraform installed on the system. Now it has tainted. Again, we got the error, and this time it says the state currently contains no resource instances whatsoever. Okay, since we, like I said, taint does the destroy and recreation of the instance, but doesn't found any instance created so far. So that's the reason it's failing here. So what we can do at this point of time, we can quickly um, disable it for now. What we can do, so this was not really mandatory to have, but good if you have it. So we can do this like stage. Wait a minute. Oh, Control S. I'll push this code. I have modified it to Jenkins file for now. Jenkins file. Mhm. Commit, and then I'll say push. So forget about it. Taint because we have disabled it. Let me see if it does. Now it has skipped that step. It is going to apply, start creating the things. Okay. Now I'll show that taint stuff as well now. So this is very really great that we have got the error. We have learned another thing. So the deployment seems successful, but it is trying to connect EC2, and now it is trying to deploy the Docker stuff as well. Let's see. It's retrying. So why is it doing so? Because we have configured it in this way. Because if I don't do this configuration right here, the entire job will be failed because Docker takes time to have it ready, have itself ready for further configurations that we have aligned as a part of our command line, the Docker build and every other thing. That's the reason I have asked here to Docker give the Docker time. If I don't do this, it will fail. All right, this time it's successful because here it what it said, it was retrying, and then the moment it sees Docker is ready, it starts cloning it and doing the Docker build stuff like we like it was doing in the local setup of that application deployment. Okay, last time. Now, if I go back here on the Jenkins, if I refresh this console, I'll be getting two EC2 instance. One says Jenkins master, and the another one is Python Docker app. That's great, and it's initializing. Meanwhile, it is initializing. We can still check whether we are getting the page on the EC2 instance. This time I did not open the Jenkins master. If one application is hosted on Jenkins master like this, and let's see on this EC2 as well, we have it configured. The port is same and the protocol is also same. And here we go. We now getting hello from Jenkins plus Terraform plus Docker. It is exactly the same what we have defined here in our app.py, right? So we have already used Docker files. So we have like uh, did the containerization thing. We have touched based on it. Now in my next video, what I'll talk about is how you can eliminate the use of this EC2 instance. Means if you configure the EC2 instance, launch EC2 instance, and host the application on it, you will still be charged for that EC2 instance, right? To keep it running. There's the reason one more solution we have uh, got in the market as the serverless based application. That means behind the scenes there is no server to it. There are solutions AWS has offered. One of them is ECS, Elastic Container Services. We will make a use of it. We'll deploy the application there. But to understand the ECS part, I have already covered it in my AWS playlist. You can give it a watch what ECS is, how you can configure it. But this time I will not be focusing on what ECS is. I will be focusing on how you deploy the app once your ECS is ready, ECS is created, and how you can confirm the or validate the application deployment as well. So here we see the applications. But before I hang this call up, I would like to show you what was the taint all about. So now I'm going to revert those changes here. So once my application is deployed, everything is up. And what I did here is, just a second, let me again uncomment it. Uh, all right, I'll say save. I'll again push it to my Git. Let me do the terminal, new terminal. Okay, I'll come here on the Git bash. All right, now I'll again add the Jenkins file to it. I'll again commit it and then we'll push the changes to my remote repository like this. And this time you will see the use of taint because we already have EC2 instance running where this application is deployed. However, if you make any changes and may want the application want that feature to be effective on the application, what we do is we recreate the instance. Means we would not delete it manually. The taint would do that stuff, right? So now I have enabled it again. I'll come back to Jenkins. I'll say, hey Jenkins, let's do the deployment again. And this would be the for deployment, build with parameters. I'll do build and then I'll see what is the use of it. So let's see, initialize the backend. Now it is taint, has been marked taint, and now it has started, see, it has started refreshing the resources. And the first thing is it is doing, it is destroying this EC2 instance ending with 55F. So what the instance was 55F, this is the one, right? So that's where your taint command is very useful to have. because it was the first time we were running, it did not find any existing resource. So it now started destroying it, and it will now again uh, redeploy it. Or what we could do there is we could also disable it when we chosen build with parameters. We could have done this as well, and instead of uh, commenting it out here. So that was the different solution we could have actually implemented at first place. So sorry about that. This was the purpose of being it enabled or not. So if I do yes, if I do no, it will skip this part taint, right? If I enable it, it will choose that enable. So that's the reason we have configured it as true or false. So that's my bad here, and prefer to configure it like this instead of commenting it out and in there. That's the preferred method. All right, let's see where we have reached. Okay, we have reached to again Docker stuff. I don't think it will take much time. It will be up somewhere from now. Okay, I think it's ready and it has done his part. Let's see, in like next 15 seconds it will be up. Done. All right, now let's again refresh this. That F55F is gone. We have come up with new address. Now let me open this again. 5000. Okay, it was HTTP, not HTTPS. There we go. So that's the reason we have the taint command in place. Make sure you configure it like this when you configure it on your enterprise environment, and this would be useful when you do it for the first time. This would be useful when you do it for the um, when you have the recurring activities, right? You choose the taint, and for the first time you disable it. All